Thank you. Truly humbled to be here today to talk to you about India. I am so excited to talk to you about this amazing opportunity. But if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'd like you to take a moment and think about your personal why. And everyone's got a personal why. It's why you're here. It's why you chose to be here after months, after years, after decades. And I want you to reflect on that why as I share my why. Mike told you I've been with USkin for about 13 years, and it's true, I've been here for a long time. It doesn't feel like it, but it has been a long time. And, is it better? There we go. Okay, so it was not on. All right, so like I was saying, if you remember yesterday when Ryan was talking about our principles, he mentioned radical truth. Well, radical truth, I never expected to be working for NewSkin long term. I started in NewSkin Brussels on a 3-month contract as a finance intern, and truthfully, I was just like, all right, it's a job. I'll find something else while I'm working for NewSkin. And 13 years later, here I am. It's really interesting when you think about it, right? It's really easy to work for a company when 5% of what we do is 95% of what we are. And that's really kind of why I'm here today. But even before all of this, right? Like Mike mentioned, I grew up in India. I was a kid in India with big dreams and big goals. Growing up in India, I will say, I count myself extremely blessed and privileged. The life I had in India was not the life that most people have. I got to go to a school where English was the main medium of education. I got to spend my summers in Belgium and Europe. I got to see a Western perspective that most folks in India don't have. But at the same time, my day-to-day life in India was with folks of all walks of life. I had friends whose parents were entrepreneurs. I had friends whose parents were struggling to make ends meet. And as I finished my undergrad and I was looking to move to Belgium to do my master's, I had this kind of feeling. I was like, well, it feels like I'm leaving something, but it almost feels like there's unfinished business. And I never knew what that was until 6 years ago. Mike came to me and he said, hey, NewSkin's gonna open in India sometime soon. Do you want to be part of the team that helps open it? And I would say over those 5 years, I cannot tell you that this is what my why is. I want to be able to be in a position where I can contribute positively to the country that gave me a lot. So that's my why. And thank you. And as I hope you reflect on your why, India, PRISM, the massive opportunities that NewSkin have, I hope that helps re-energize your why. So without further ado, let's get into the business insights. I mentioned India is an amazing country, but it's also maddeningly complex at times. So you've probably seen these, but I think it's really worth mentioning because it is really important. We need to talk about who is eligible to build in India. And there's really only a few types of folks who can build in India. It's Indian nationals, so folks living in India. Obviously, we're not open in India today, so that's not the group we're going to talk about. It's non-resident Indians, so it's Indians who have an Indian passport, but they're working outside of India. It's overseas citizens of India. It's folks who have some sort of connection to India. Maybe their parents immigrated outside of India and they're first generation or second generation. People of Indian origin. For the purpose of today's conversation, that's similar to OCI. And then finally, we've got foreigners who hold a valid Indian business visa. Now, I'm not sure, but I'm fairly certain there aren't any Indian nationals in this room. And I don't think we've had a lot of NRIs. I'm pretty sure I'm the only OCI or PIO in this room as well. And I don't know if you've had to deal with Indian bureaucracy, but I would not recommend the last option, unless you're Alan, because Alan's Alan. But I'm sharing this with you because I wanted to say, well, you guys are all here, and you're going to look at me and say, well, Andrew, we don't fit in any of this, so why are we here? Well, let's talk about that. Do you realize that there are 20 million Indians of Indian origin or Indian nationals living outside of India? We've got leaders from North America here, we've got leaders from the Pacific, from Southeast Asia, from West Europe, Africa. There's 20 million Indian nationals out there. Justin mentioned this yesterday briefly, right? He mentioned one type of folk you might encounter in your day-to-day life. The next time you go to your Indian restaurant, great opportunity. But there's actually quite a lot of other Indians you might interact in your day-to-day life. You might have, your doctor might be Indian, doctor of prison, great connection. You might have someone you might go to a local salon, the salon owner might be Indian, might just show you the steering line, another great opportunity. So with this diaspora is where this group can really play, because we need a groundswell of opportunity before we go into India, right? We need folks who are India eligible, who know the New Skin opportunity, who know the New Skin plan before we go into the market. I've never been here. I haven't been at New Skin long enough to be part of a market opening, but I've always heard that every time we open a market, it's our international leaders that help go and open. Eileen's done it, Carl's done it, all of you have done this. So when we talk about who we need for India, that's going to be the folks we need. Now, I don't expect you to do this out of the goodness of your heart, but I know you are, because you're great people. But I want to talk about what's in it for you. So let's talk about the global growth pool. And I'm going to use Lena as an example, because we were actually just talking about this before we got on stage. So let's say you are an international leader. You do not want to go into India, set up a business entity, create a foreign, get your PAN card, your tax ID, all of that, but you want to benefit off of the growth that's going to happen in India. So let's say you are a brand rep. Lena's obviously a team lead out of Sweden. But let's say she finds someone who is India eligible. Maybe she goes to a restaurant. She mentioned she's got a good prospect who is in Sweden right now. Let's say she signs that person up. That person then becomes a Swedish brand affiliate. Now, between now and November, which is when our pre-launch is, as long as that Swedish person, that lady, becomes a brand rep by the time we open for our pre-launch, they are going to have the opportunity to go and create an Indian account. Now, this is where it's going to be a little different than other market launches as well. You'll notice that UK India eligible brand affiliate and that Indian brand affiliate, they're tied together with a line and not an arrow. That means that we're not merging accounts. India has certain regulations that require us to keep two separate entities. So the line of sponsorship in India needs to start and end in India. So what that means is that Swedish lady that Lane is bringing in, she's going to have two separate accounts, two separate contracts with two separate entities. So she's going to have a Swedish account that's going to be through New Skin Sweden, and it can participate in the global SVP, but then she can also go and create an Indian account that's going to participate in the India SVP. Now that's for the Swedish lady herself, that's for Lena's downline. Now what's the benefit for Lena herself? That's where this comes in, right? So when we open the market, when we do our pre-launch, as this Indian person goes into India, they start building their India leadership team, and they amass a certain amount of sales from that team. That's where Lena starts benefiting from it. So because what happens here is this person that's in India building a leadership team, it's essentially a sign for the Indian regulators where we can talk to them and say, hey, Lena brought this person into Sweden, she supported and mentored them. She's not in India with this person building it, but this person wouldn't be in India if it wasn't for Lena's efforts. So Lena is going to be compensated by New Skin Sweden, very important, not New Skin India, New Skin Sweden, through the global growth pool on a value that's going to be approximate to the lead bonus. So we've talked about this. I think a lot of you had concerns about this for the last year, and that concern is being addressed right here with this global growth pool. So we are going to be true to who we are, like Ryan mentioned, it is still very much leadership driven with the global growth pool. And there's actually another amazing part to this, because you can treat this leg, this India leadership team, as an unlock. So what do I mean by an unlock? That means that this leadership team, all that India revenue that they're generating, that's not the only revenue that you get to benefit off of. So let's say Lena has a few other G1s, and those G1s have India volume maybe on their G4 or G5. Because Lena has supported and mentored this Swedish person, she's actually going to benefit off of that India volume as well. So that again speaks to the leadership driven component of our plan. These are aspects of the global growth pool that I am really excited about, because if you remember, because if you remember, Justin also mentioned yesterday, he said, last year when we talked about India, Dubai, when we talked about the founders promotion, we were not sure if we could pay internationally, and that is very true. Like Eric and the team, we spent a lot of hours figuring out with the legal team, what could we do to pay? And the outcome is the global growth pool. So what happens to the founders promotion that we talked about last year? Because essentially the founders promotion was our way to say, hey, there's a chance we might not even be able to pay. This is the kind of the stopgap. But now that we can pay with the global growth pool, what's going to happen to the founders promotion? Does anyone actually here remember the founders promotion? Close? Can anyone tell me what the rules are? I'll buy you about a round of drinks in India if you can. Can anyone tell me what the rules are? No? What's that? 2 rupees? Yeah. 2% of market revenue. Yeah, you're all saying components of it. Does anyone remember that there was a component in there that said you need to have 10,000 India OV? Yeah. So there's all these complexities to that plan where I was like, okay, this is going to be really hard if this is our only option to pay. But guess what? With the new founders promotion, way simpler. I can actually tell it to you in this slide right here. It's 2x global growth pool, and if you're in India, it's 2x your lead. So double lead if you're in India, or double global growth pool if you're an international leader. For the pre-launch window, now think about that. It's no longer a 5% story, it's a 10% story in the pre-launch window. That is exciting stuff. Now I mentioned double lead or double global growth. That's because there's 2 kinds of people who could be India founders. You could be someone like Leah, who's an international leader, who's an India founder, but you could also have someone like an India eligible person who's going into India and sponsoring India brand reps themselves during pre-launch. So let's talk about that first scenario right here. This is very simple, right? So this is a similar outline that I shared in the previous example of how the global growth pool would work. So in this scenario, as long as you as the international leader are a Ruby Plus in the pre-launch window, you're gonna get double global growth pool. So whatever your global growth pool payment is, you're gonna get double of that. If you're an India eligible person in India, as long as you've built an in India brand rep, you're gonna get double of what your lead payment would be in that pre-launch window. Simple enough? Easy? Yeah? No need for 10,000 OV, no need for rubies, all of that mess, right? Super simple. But wait, there is more. I want to talk to you a little about India's compensation plan, the in India compensation plan. It's not going to apply to this group here, but I think it's really important that you understand the rationale of why we designed it the way we designed it. Mike mentioned in my prior role, I was heading our customer experience team, and in that role, I got to listen to a lot of your feedback, understand your concerns, your needs as it comes to the struggles you deal with, the positives of Nu Skin, but also the negatives of Nu Skin. And I know that when it comes to our plan, one of our biggest issues has always been, it's so hard to explain, and it's so not flexible. So that's really what was the thinking as we designed the India compensation plan. And we can do this because India is kind of its own self-contained thing. Again, because of the regulations, because you need to have separate India accounts, we have the flexibility to make India simple. And by simple, I mean to the extent that India is actually going to be a currency-based plan. What does that mean? No SV? Yeah, really simple. You just say you need to sell this many thousand rupees worth of product. That's it. You don't need to understand what SD is. And guess what? We're also not going to have a concept of DCSV, but I'm going to get into that later, simplifying it even further. We are going to add this concept of a qualifying brand affiliate. This is kind of one of those areas where India is maddeningly complex because to sign up, unfortunately, we're not going to have something like a just-in-time sign-up in India because there's a massive amount of legal documents that you need to provide to sign up. A few of them being the company will need to provide you a valid ID card. You've got to watch like the company mandated training, go through that. You've also got to have a food safety handler's license type of thing, and you've got to get that from the government because all farm mixed products are considered food and food supplements. So to get that, you've actually got to go to a government website, apply for a license, and that's going to take some time. So what we're going to do in that time is we're going to talk about this concept of a qualifying brand affiliate. That's probably not going to be the final name. We're still working on it. But it's this idea of someone who isn't a full-fledged brand affiliate yet, but they've got a little bit of time to train and understand and learn the right behaviors. And what are those right behaviors? Pretty simple. You just need to sell 10,000 rupees worth of product. 10,000 rupees for context is about $120. So not massive amounts of money, but decent to show that you have the intent and the wit and the grit to become a brand affiliate. So once you do that, then you become brand affiliate, and then it's just like you always know it. And then finally, the last point, again, in the interest of simplifying, we're going from 4 bonuses to 3. Now that does not mean that payout is going down. Payout still stays the same. We're just simplifying from 4 to 3. So let's talk about what that simplification means. With the very first bonus, oh, there we go, which is an L1 bonus. Again, these names likely going to change, but we want to talk about the concepts and the mechanics here. The L1 bonus is a really simple bonus where it says, as long as you are buying, you have the ability to buy at a lower price than the person you're selling to, you're going to get a differential. So let's say Lucas is an affiliate and he's selling to Haling, and Haling is a retail customer. So Lucas is an affiliate, gets affiliate price, and Haling gets retail price. The difference between the two is what Lucas is going to get as a differential. And that could be up to 25%. Now in India, we're also going to have a few different price points. It's not just member wholesale and retail, there's actually going to be a couple of others. And we can get into more details on that as we get closer to launch, or if you're interested, find Mike and myself, we can get into the details of that. But I wanted to let you know that super simple, L1, you do X, you get Y. You sell something, you get up to 25% off of it. The next bonus is actually a combination of the bill bonus, the referring bonus. And it's, again, really simple. It's just an L2 bonus. Again, not final name, but you're going to get a certain percent of all of your L2 sales. I'm sure folks with the USSBP, you're thinking, oh, it's 10% of your customer volume. No, 10% of all volume. Even if you've got a brand rep on your L2, you're getting volume off of that. You're getting revenue off of that. So if you're an affiliate, you're going to earn 10% of your L2 sales. The qualifier is still L1 volume, but you're going to earn 10%. And you might be asking, well, what's the motivation for someone to go from a brand affiliate to break and go into being a brand rep? That's where the higher tiers comes in, because as an affiliate, you're really getting 10%. But if you are a brand rep, you're going to have additional tiers. You could earn 15%, 20%, 25% on your L2 sales. That's going to help you, provided you're a brand rep. Now you might be saying, well, that's still not enough for a brand rep, because why would a brand rep only earn on L1 and L2? Because they have way more levels than that. And that's where the third bonus comes in. Now the third bonus, you are fairly familiar with. It is the lead bonus as we know it. And again, being a leadership-driven, customer-obsessed company, we're not changing who we are on that. In India, because it's self-contained, Ryan and Chase have said we can do a 5% 6 levels plan. Note that it is a risk that we're taking as a company, but as a calculated business risk that we're saying we're going to pay 5% 6 levels in India. But in addition to that, we're also going to pay 5% on G0, which is essentially 5% on your GSV. So in addition to all that L2 bonus that you're earning as a brand rep, you're also getting 5% on your G0 or GSV. Simple? 3 bonuses, L1, L2, lead, that's it. You can explain it in 2 minutes. Awesome. So, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this part. I do want to talk a little bit about how we enable this, right? So I talked to you about what our comp plan is, what's in it for you, how you get incentivized, how folks in India get incentivized. Now ultimately, all of this is going to boil down to how we can enable it through technology. Now, I was on a call last week with a US leader who's been with us for a while, and the call was meant to be to talk about India, but we spent most of our time talking about Equinox, which understandably so, right? It's been an issue, but it's something that I know Joe and team are working furiously on to make sure that we're getting better at. And as we were talking about that, as I was recalling that conversation I had with that leader last week, I also thought a little bit about what Ryan said Charlie had shared with him, right? Big vision, small problems, small vision, big problems. I hope that you can see that India is the big vision, PRISM is the big vision for us, and I hope that you can know that we are going to do our best to make sure that things like technology failures are small problems for us, because the bigger vision is what's going to get us there. So when we talk about those technology aspects of being digital first in India, we know that we have to get the fundamentals right. So when we're talking about the fundamentals in India, for that pre-launch window, we're just going to have the basics. We're going to have a .com experience where you can sign up, shop, share, subscribe. So your basic pathway to purchase. We're also going to have VNG because you can't manage your business if you don't know your data. And then finally, we're going to have PRISM, so we're going to have the PRISM app. But everything else is going to be a fast follow. So you might realize that I didn't say MySide, I didn't say Stella, I didn't say Avera, because those are going to be fast follows, because we want to make sure all of you have been involved with a lot of market launches. Stuff is going to go wrong, and we want to make sure we're minimizing that as best as we can so that you can focus on the bigger opportunity. So with that, I'm going to bring Mike back on stage to bring us on home. Thank you.